Hey, what's going on? So today is Friday, November 17th, 2023. We're going to talk about Stronghold Digital Mining stock price. You know, when this company first came public on October 20th, 2021, let's say you would have bought 100 shares of the company at, say, $19 a share, right? So $100, or rather 100 shares at $19 would have been a $1,900 investment. In that time, right, from October 20th, 2021 to today, November 17th, 2023, what has happened to that $1,900? So it's not 100 shares anymore because there was a 1 for 10 reverse stock split. So now your 100 shares are just 10 shares. And your 10 shares, based on today's closing price of, were we just below $4 a share, I believe, $3.97. So 10 shares times $3.97 equals $39.70. You put $1,900 into Stronghold Digital Mining and you close your eyes on October 20th, 2021, and you're like, you know, I'm going to keep my eyes closed for 2 full years. And then I'm going to reopen my eyes sometime maybe in November of 2023. And I'm going to open my eyes with all of the anticipation and hope that one could imagine, right? And you look and you see $39.70. I know that I can, listen, I know that I can joke around a lot, and I try to, present things in a very positive way, right? But I've had the opportunity to interact with quite a number of people who are what I've sometimes referred to as the OGs, right? What, original gangsters? I'm not sure that that's even applicable, right? But for whatever reason, I just think of them as like the OGs, and they're the ones who maybe got involved with Stronghold Digital Mining in 2021. And, you say to yourself, imagine if, hey, I didn't get in at 19, I got in at 35. Same 100 shares. So you put roughly, say, $3,500 into this thing. Now you're down to $39.70. From the very beginning, I sort of said to some of these people, hey, look, I get where you're coming from. It's been a catastrophic investment. And, I wasn't involved with Stronghold Digital Mining when it first came public. I remember seeing an article, I believe in, I don't know if it was Fortune, magazine, Forbes, I forget now where, but it was somewhere. I saw an article about Stronghold Digital Mining. At the time, I was in a very similarly reckless feeling investment, if you want to call it that, which involved kind of gambling on there being some modicum of recovery in the oil market. And I expressed that through a bunch of long-term equity call options on ExxonMobil. And I distinctly recall when was it like the XB, I forgot all these different names for COVID. There was a particular strain that came out in late 2021, which, I thought, oh my gosh, that's it. We're going to go back into shutdown. This could be it, right? Because those particular call options expired in January of 2023. So my concern was, of course, right? Hey, you run out of time. That's it. Those things expire and you're done, right? Like everything goes poof. But thankfully I kind of made it through that. And so it wasn't until really June of 2022 that I started to like take a very, very close look at Stronghold, simply because the mine waste reclamation facility that would have been their third acquisition as a power plant is something that has been kind of a part of my life for a long time. And so I just sort of immediately, and I understood the whole thing with mine waste. And my ancestors, at least on one side of my family, were all either coal miners or steel workers. So again, the story I understood at an intuitive level. So yeah, that's when I started maybe nibbling at some shares in mid to late 2022. I had the opportunity, as I'm sure you may have as well, right? Depending where you sort of got in, to flip the shares for, a pretty significant profit. But as I got deeper and deeper into the story and deeper into my own story, like my own past, right? In terms of like, hey, where my ancestors come from and what they had to do to survive, right? And kind of tapping a little bit more into the Pennsylvania centric side of my ancestry, I found myself feeling increasingly connected to the mission and purpose of this business. I've always been somebody who cares deeply about the environment. And, people, obviously there's a very wide, sort of like spectrum of viewpoints and perspectives as it relates to environmental issues. And clearly I'm at odds with people that I think under any other circumstance, generally speaking, find myself to be, very compatible with in terms of certain worldviews. Not everything, but I don't know, like for whatever reason, what Stronghold Digital Mining is doing, which from my perspective is just like industrial scale earth liberation. We're taking mine waste and liberating the earth from this toxic garbage. And in so doing, we are not trading, the idea of like, hey, we're going to trade clean water and a liberated earth for, hey, we'll trade that for dirty air. What we're really doing is we're cleaning up the earth, right? And we're trading it for EPA approved emissions. And the biggest knock on Stronghold Digital Mining has been, hey, you guys release a lot of carbon into the environment. Well, now, right, we're in the process of testing a pilot project in the field, right, for carbon capture, which is phenomenal. But getting back to the stock price, I've seen firsthand just how devastatingly challenging this stock price journey has been. And I look at, hey, I've had the dollar cost average to some degree to kind of stay in the game here, but there's no sugarcoating it, okay? The stock price performance has been absolutely, unequivocally embarrassing and abysmal. And I don't say that in a manner to suggest that there's that hey, any one individual or group of individuals, right, are to blame for that. I think what I am saying is that as a team, when we look at the scoreboard, the stock price, yes, it's true, we don't have complete control over that score. But there are elements within our own operations that can arguably influence that stock price. Being cash flow positive, I believe, is something that can be a positive influence on the stock price. Attempting at every opportunity to escape from obscurity is something else that definitely helps. There's a, I don't know how to really phrase this or say this. There's a very, like an exceptionally successful California businesswoman whose success in life, right, seems to, at least in part, be derived from her ability to expose, a part of her body, right, to the internet. And there's like millions upon clicks and views. And, there's like this obsession with this very successful California businesswoman's anatomy. And if I mention her name, you'd know the name immediately. I mean, she and her family probably have a net worth upwards of $1 billion. I mean, that's very, very successful. And it is not lost upon me that, I mean, someone like that, right, who has that level of following, right? Imagine she were to put a temporary tattoo on this body part of hers, which she routinely, to her credit, she's very self-empowered. Hey, she displays this body part, right, to the world. Imagine if there were a temporary, tattoo on this body part that had like the Stronghold Digital Mining logo, and maybe even the word Stronghold Digital Mining, ticker symbol SDIG. I'm inclined to believe that level of notoriety, or whatever you want to call it, right, attention to this company would have a material impact on the stock price, with nothing else changing. And you're like, hey man, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, I agree. Logically, it doesn't make sense. But we, hey, for better or for worse, we do live in a world where money tends to follow attention. So this is all by way of saying, I said yesterday that I was going to devote this entire episode to talking about the stock price. And I do have something I put together where we're going to look at the chart, and I'm going to make some observations and commentary about where I think the stock price can go from here. As I say in that little snippet, I believe I say, hey, this is not investment advice. Do your own research. I don't really say that stuff a whole lot because I know you're an intelligent person and I know that you're a very independent person and that you're not going to do one thing or the other based on what you just hear on the internet. Naturally, you're going to do your own due diligence, right? Naturally, you understand that, like, hey, we're just having a conversation. I'm sharing my thoughts and perspectives about Stronghold Digital Mining, and I'm doing so in a way that's very, very unconventional. I'm not doing this in a scripted manner. I actually have the equipment that I'd need to script these broadcasts, and I could sit here and look straight into the camera and read a script. And maybe there's a time and a place to do that, right? I don't know that you're here, right, to have a conversation with a robot. I even joked about this early on. I'm like, hey, I did kind of look into this idea of like, what if I could have one of these synthesized like AI voices, like create these broadcasts deriving the data that it talks about from our homemade Stronghold Digital Mining shareholder dashboard, but it's like, dude, who the hell? I mean, you get together with somebody that, hey, I want to get together with a friend of mine. I don't want my buddy to show up in the form of a robot that just, gives me some canned speech. So the good news is, right, we have, I think, very freewheeling conversations. The bad news is that, hey, look, I'm not here to just kind of like, if you're looking for more of a structured, hey, Steven's just going to read from a script, well then shit, I should just start a blog then and you can read that. I don't need to like necessarily, regurgitate what I have in written form, so to speak. But anyway, I digress. The point I'm trying to make is, listen, I'm not oblivious to the fact that our stock price has performed effing horribly since the IPO. Okay, I get that. It's just awful. It really is awful. It's embarrassing. It's shocking. And you look at a chart like ours over the course of the last, 2+ years, you look at a chart like that, if I were in the medical profession, I'd be hard pressed not to think, you know what? This patient has flatlined. There's no pulse. There's no life. We got to call it. What time is it? Okay. Get the toe tag. Let's, hey, this has got it, right? This is done. But that's where I think opportunity exists, right? Because understandably, for a lot of people, you look at the chart, it's like, forget it, they're done. And look, hey, maybe one day we'll have a broadcast where all I do is, do a so-called red team attack on Stronghold, where all I do is talk about the flaws, the problems, the imperfections, the areas where this company can slip and fall and never, rise up again. And I've certainly done that type of exercise for myself. And I oftentimes do that when I'm just by myself. I'm out kind of like in the open fields, right? And I'm just thinking of everything that could go wrong. And I say to myself, hey, am I truly comfortable with seeing this thing go to zero? And you know what the funny thing is? What ultimately causes me the most pain at some level, like an emotional pain, it's not even the money, because the reality of the world we live in, and you could probably relate to this, there's an ocean of money out there. Okay, there's countless opportunities, right, to make money. Money's made, money's lost, right? And that may sound like a very privileged sounding thing to say, except that I learned this lesson from some of the arguably most unprivileged people on planet Earth, who have a disposition towards life, a disposition towards money that's very, very interesting and very refreshing. Where there's like this hustle attitude, this hustle mentality, this like, hey man, I got to just get up every day, go out there, hustle by any means necessary, generate some money to support myself, my family, where they're, these people aren't getting too hung up on, hey man, what are the rules and regulations? Do I got to vet this through a squadron of attorneys? It's more like, look, there's demand out there. Hey, I can provide supply. Supply meets demand. Everyone's happy, right? I bring home some money for me and my family. I'm not necessarily saying I condone aspects of that, but I'm just saying it's a very, very interesting and thought-provoking lesson. So what pains me isn't so much the idea of like, hey, I have an investment in the company, could go to zero. That sucks. It does suck. But what really bums me out is the idea that there are people who have given their life to this thing. There are people I know for sure at Scrubgrass that have spent their entire adult careers at Scrubgrass. It would really suck to have a place like Scrubgrass shut down permanently. I think that's what pains me the most. It would be the loss of jobs, the impact that this would have on communities. When I think of Nesquahoning, I think about some of the issues that have taken place in that local community. There was a really big employer there that I've referenced in past broadcasts that shut down. They used to make fire engines, fire trucks. And it was a source of great pride for this community, incredible pride. And it employed a lot of people. And without getting into the mechanics and details of it all, it ended up shutting down. That particular location shut down. And the Washington Post wrote a very insightful article about the impact that it had on the people of the community. And it's really kind of depressing, sad. It's just not a comfortable feeling for me when I think about that. So I don't want to see Panther Creek shut down. I don't want to see Scrubgrass shut down. I don't want to see anybody lose their damn job. I want to see this company succeed. Okay. But I just want you to understand that, listen, hey, I get it. This stock price has been absolutely effing abysmal, terrible. So with all of that said, let me see now if through the magic of some editing, I can kind of splice in this little segment that I prepared where I'm going to look at a stock chart. It's a 1-year chart, and we're going to kind of talk about things from this point going forward. But I just want to let you know, if you happen to be one of the OGs that got in 2021, if Stronghold Digital Mining is able to execute relentlessly on a variety of initiatives, right, including this carbon capture initiative, if we're able to execute with the help of Frontier Mining to get our data centers, right, to be doing everything that those data centers can do, right, in terms of Bitcoin, if we catch a little bit of a lucky break with respect to the Bitcoin ecosystem, right, our exposure to Bitcoin, if in fact we go into another bull market for the price of Bitcoin and hash prices go up, if a lot of these things align, okay, I think there's a reasonable chance that Stronghold Digital Mining can get back to where it used to be back in 2021. I'm not saying it's going to be an easy journey, because it's not. I'm not saying it's a guaranteed journey, because, man, at this point, it feels like just being able to wake up tomorrow and see that, hey, we're still in business, we're still hustling. That in and of itself feels like a success, right? But I do think that there's hope that we can potentially return to where we were in 2021. And then maybe even if we're very blessed, if we're very dedicated to what we're doing, right? If the company, meaning Stronghold Digital Mining, I sometimes say we, really Stronghold Digital Mining, I'm external to Stronghold, but I live in Pennsylvania. As I often say, I breathe the air, I drink the water, I care deeply about these communities. I care deeply about the mission and purpose of this business. It's kind of personal to me at some level. And you've probably noticed that over time, this has become less and less of a sort of objective entity that I'm talking about. And it's become more and more something that I personally am very, very deeply devoted to, in terms of wanting to see this company succeed and trying to figure out, hey, what role can I play to help this business ultimately succeed? So anyway, with all of that said, let's take a look at this stock chart. I do think it's very interesting. And let's keep in mind, Chase White, Compass Point Research, he has a CFA, which means he's a certified financial analyst, I believe. That is a very, very challenging designation to earn. So when Chase, in his professional opinion, when he believes, hey, it's appropriate to give this company a price target, a stock price target of $17 a share, that's not just some random dude, throwing a dart and guessing a number. This is somebody who, is devoted professionally to, the job of, analyzing securities. He has a very, very prestigious and very difficult to obtain credential as it relates to having a CFA, amongst a variety of other educational credentials that I think are stellar. So, I think we need to keep that in mind too, right? If Chase is saying, hey, my price target's 17, I mean, you and I can both look at the stock price. It's under $4 a share, but again, I want to, as the backdrop to all of that, I just wanted to acknowledge we've had a really, really, really tough 2 years. So, okay, with all of that said, let's go to the chart. So the stock is hovering at a price of just around $4 a share. And that's as of today, November 17th, 2023. Throughout the entire year, this is a 1-year chart, by the way. Throughout the entire year, we've seen a lot of ups and downs. I'm going to draw your attention to the very beginning of 2023, right about here. You'll notice that as the month of December of 2022 transpired, the stock price just kept going lower and lower and lower. It kind of bottomed out. And then as the year began, we saw a fairly significant rise in the price of the stock, followed once again by a bit of a drifting downwards all the way down, and then it popped up quite violently. There again, it just kind of kept sliding down, down, down. Then we saw more of like a momentous, or rather like a momentous, more of a momentum-based rise in the stock price, which arguably, it was kind of momentous, right, to see it going up. And then we really, really, really saw shares of Stronghold Digital Mining skyrocket. I think they topped out at about, $12.50 a share. And that would have been during the month of April. As we got into May, things started going down again. They really dropped a bit in the middle of May. In through June, we saw the stock price go down, down, down. Once again, we sort of bottomed out right about here. This was right at the beginning of July. And then once again, we saw a very, very, very violent move upward in this stock price. Then we sort of hobbled around a bit somewhat, right? Kind of a lot of turbulence there. Once again, beginning in August, the stock just kept going down, 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 down. And pretty much once we reached September, at that point, then we saw the stock just kind of, got down below $5 a share. And it's kind of been in this range since pretty much the beginning of September. Now, I think an argument could be made, right? As we look at the month of November here, I think the stock is kind of moving down a bit, right? It seems to have stabilized a bit now. It kind of went up a little bit today. Last couple of days, it's sort of been going up. I wonder, and I'm kind of curious what you think. So leave your thoughts in the comments, right? But I wonder if we're kind of lining up for another situation similar to what we had in December. Hey, a lot of tax loss selling, a lot of selling pressure generally. Even though, by the way, we've got, I think, arguably one of the best, we've been, as a company, we've been in one of the best shapes I think we've been in a very long time, right? Dramatic debt restructuring. We've completely ramped up our Bitcoin mining operations. Now we have the prospect of this carbon capture project. There's going to be a special investor day on December 12th. That investor day and any potential news release that comes out before then, reporting on the results of this initial test, this field test over at Scrubgrass, I think that's going to have some profound implications for the stock price, right? Possibly even before the end of the year. But that being said, I still suspect there's going to be tremendous selling pressure, right, as we get towards the end of this year. So then the question becomes, hey, based on what we saw transpire during 2023, right, where we saw the stock enter the year pretty much on a downswing, it went up quite a bit, then went down, up again, down, then it really, really kind of surged upward. But then we saw that deep slide in through the beginning of July, another huge, uplift, kind of stayed somewhat, stable, somewhat turbulent, went way, way down again. And now we've just been hovering with a slight downward bias, right, as we get in towards the end of November. I mean, bear in mind, and back to me now, please. Hey, a quick heads up. I recorded this earlier, so you're going to see me dressed very differently than I was at the beginning of this video. Okay, on with the show. Bear in mind that, Chase White over at Compass Point just the other day raised the stock price target on shares of Stronghold Digital Mining to $17 a share. Okay, that is a significant, almost like a roughly 400% increase from where we are right now. That's a huge, price target. It really is. And remember, that's not based per se on a chart. That's just based on the fundamentals of the business. Really, looking at all the different numbers, right? All the balance sheet, the income statement, looking at all those fundamentals and coming up with a number that's $17 a share. Now, looking at a stock chart, right? If you're someone who's like, okay, yeah, man, don't bore me with all the numbers. I don't care about that. I want to see some evidence, right? In a stock chart that, hey, this thing might have the potential to go up in price. Well, I think based on the chart that we just looked at, we're pretty much right, kind of like at that very, very stable, flat, kind of like movement. Remember, I'm not a technician, so I don't know all the lingo that technicians routinely use. But I will say that I do think that, yeah, there is a potential we're going to see the stock price maybe be under pressure heading into the end of the year. But when you think about the things that transpired in 2023, this year, I'm not sure that there was anything that radically momentous per se that would have, you could say arguably, hey, this is the trigger for why the stock rose to $12.50 a share, give or take a little bit, right, in the middle of the year, early to middle part of the year. Arguably at this point, with this carbon capture initiative, now that we've pretty much, we're fully maxed out with the data centers, I think at this juncture, it's almost a foregone conclusion that at some point in early 2024, we are going to have the approval of a spot Bitcoin ETF. All of these things are coming into alignment. So absent there being a complete and utter belly flop on the part of the business, right, from an operational standpoint, say, hash prices go to nothing, grid prices go to nothing, suddenly carbon capture isn't even a thing anymore, right? There are no more credits for that. So you have like zero revenue inputs. Well, sure, that's problematic. But I mean, come on, let's kind of be realistic here. So I mean, from my perspective, I'm just kind of talking now purely like, hey, I'm thinking out loud. Like, hey, if I wanted to pick up some more shares of this company between now and the end of the year, would probably be a good time to have some cash set aside to have at the ready should the market provide, a bizarrely interesting opportunity to pick up shares at, 3 something a share again, maybe even lower than 3. Who knows, right? I mean, markets can move in some very odd ways. And as I've said before, shares of Stronghold Digital Mining are subject to market forces. So if we were to see a situation in the broader market where things really take a beating, shares of Stronghold are going to be pulled down as well. And that may present the most intriguing buying opportunity of all, because then it has nothing to do with Stronghold Digital Mining specifically, and more to do with some upheaval that has upset the market, and so there's just, broad-based selling for whatever reason that may be. So as a lot of YouTubers might often say, this is not investment advice. Do your own research, do your own homework. I mean, look, I'm not into giving a bunch of disclaimers. I mean, I trust your judgment. I trust that you're an intelligent individual who can make decisions for yourself. Okay, we're just having a conversation, and I'm just sharing out loud what I'm thinking, insofar as when I look at that stock chart and I think, hey, what could the next 3 to 6 months have in store for shares of this company? Hey, yeah, it's true. We could go to zero, right? That's always a possibility. But I'm not betting we're going to zero. If anything, I'm betting, and I'm increasingly thinking it's likely that even though I'm not a short-term, trader, at least not with regard to shares of this company, I am kind of thinking we might be setting up for, a potential doubling of the stock price, a potential tripling of the stock price, to the extent the expertise and wisdom and analysis of somebody like Chase White at Compass Point is taken to heart by the market. We could see shares of this company trading up to about $17 a share, which, as I mentioned before, is Chase's current price target for shares of Stronghold Digital Mining. So let me know what you think. I mean, I'm sure, obviously, right, we'd all be thrilled if the stock trades up to $17 a share. I get that. But I am intellectually curious to hear what your take is on the stock price. What are some of the catalysts that could push us higher? What are the, some of the things that maybe I'm overlooking that could pull this company's share price lower? I'm genuinely interested in hearing that. So with all of that said, let's be positive, let's be great, and we'll see each other again next week.